Okay, well I'm at home, bonnet up, trying to cool this battery down. Okay, there's big arguments on the internet about whether you should put it on the bonnet or not, does it work, how long will it last, blah blah. I've got two different four-wheel drives that I've tested this on, two very different four-wheel drives. And you're going to see some interesting stuff in this video. If you like it, click the like button, subscribe to the channel to see how we go later on. Let's get into it. Okay, lithium under bonnet, does it work? Does it get too hot? How long will it last? Blah blah blah. You've all heard the arguments. In this video, I'm going to go a few things that people aren't talking about this issue. So you might find it pretty interesting. Okay, this turned out not to be the video that I'd planned on making. What I was planning on making is a weight and space saving video. Reason being is that what I was hoping to do is eliminate the dual battery system from the Jeep by installing a hybrid battery, which is basically it can crank and provide deep cycle power for your electrics to the back of the car. The idea is I'd remove the and it's been working fine, don't get me wrong, absolutely great system I've got. The conventional AGM battery in the car, BC-DC shunt, and lithium deep cycle battery in the back. Just wanted to save a bit more space in the back. If I could do that, yeehaw. If the system didn't work, which is, I had some issues, which I kind of expected, I've ended up putting it in the Prado, and it's been working great in the Prado. Very different setups in both cars, and we'll talk about why. So it's worked great in the Prado, not so good in the Jeep. Once we get to the Prado, and what I've done with that, I'll go through the specs of the battery for you, put it up on the screen, and we'll talk about the what we've done in the Prado and why it works so great and why it's perfect for us. Okay, so the positives about lithium. Okay, heaps of cranking amps. Just this one here. It was one of the smaller ones. It was 1,000 cranking amps and 60 amp hours. Okay, so here we go. Cranking it home for the first time. Let's see what it does. We've got power to the dashboard, so that's good. All right. You know what? That is cranking heaps better. So yeah, like cranked hard, worked. The car actually worked better because this JL is quite reliant on having a lot of good healthy power, healthy battery. So the car just ran better. Probably sounds silly, but it was cranking better. Some of the other things like the electro-hydraulic steering pump worked more efficiently. You'd notice that you wouldn't get any lag in steering that you would sometimes get if the battery wasn't so healthy. And just little things like that you notice to just run, the car would just run better. But the issues. Okay, so there's three main issues I was expecting with the Jeep. First one has turned out to be an absolute game stopper, and that's heat. And the other two issues have to do with the alternator themselves, and I'll go into a bit more detail about that. Okay, so as you can see with the Jeep, there's not much room under bonnet. No issue with the car, it's not overheating or any of that sort of stuff. Runs perfectly fine. But what you'll notice is that there's not much airflow around the battery because there's just not much room in the bonnet. The other issue is that the turbo is right there, and obviously the battery's just soaking up heat, and it's just getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Got to the point where it was like 60 degrees, and yeah, I was just like, it's starting to get up there too much, and it shuts down at 80 degrees, the battery, but I was just like, well, there's no, if I'm out in the sticks and I've gone for a long drive, it's just going to get like even hotter. So I was just like, no, that's too hot for me. The other thing I noticed is that, and I was expecting this to be an issue, is the behavior of the smart alternator. So the way the alternator in this thing works, it's a 240 amp alternator, so it's a very, very powerful alternator. But the way it works, being a smart alternator, it'll only charge the battery if you're coasting down a hill, or you're off the power, or up, like driving up to a set of lights and you're off the power, then it'll boost the battery. And I'll leave a little thing to see. You'll see that the battery's like sucking the car's sucking about 40 amps from the battery, and then as I coast, it'll boost up to like 140, 150 amps, right? So it's pushing a lot of current in there when it does, but otherwise it just doesn't. The other time it boosts is just when the battery is flat, but or it needs a charge. but it'll only work that out off the battery voltage, right? And because it's a lithium battery, the battery voltage doesn't drop until, you know, it's like below 20% or something. Now, just in regards to the alternator, I've done a video. I'll just post the link up there. You can see specifically how this alternator actually works.
Okay, as the alternator disengages, it's just sitting there at 12.2 volts, and we'll keep accelerating and watch this old coast, and you'll see that the alternator will start boosting the battery up to 14 volts.
So if you're interested in that, just click on that link up there. That'll take you to that. So in that case, it just didn't seem to be, it's still charged, but just not efficiently as you would expect. Now the other issue that could have been an issue is the fact that, and it could have been contributing the heat build up in the batteries, the fact that when it was cramming current in there, it was cramming in more current than what the battery it could safely take. I'll say, well, not safely take, but it just wasn't rated to take that much current. Because it was rated to take 100 amps, apparently, and it had no dramas taking more than that, but it just could be contributing to heat build up, and that's something I have to speak to Invicta about, because I'm going to give them an email and say, hey, you know, here's some info. Now, in the end, long story short, the system I have in the Jeep is working fine. It was just an experiment, so if it didn't work, I could always put it in the Prado, and that's what we've done. Okay, so we're here with the Prado. I'll show you what we've done with this, and I'll explain to you why it's working well as opposed to the Jeep, and why it works well for us, because it may not work well for you, but it is definitely for us. Okay, so you'll see under bonnet we've just got the one Invicta Hybrid Cranking deep cycle battery. This is one that's from Invicta. Basic stats are it's 60 amp hours, 1000 cranking amps, or cold cranking amps. Put the stats up on the screen, but basically temperature wise it's spec'd to run sort of between -20 and sort of 60 degrees, basically. Cut off being 80 degrees is when it'll actually shut off. Okay, in terms of setup, it's very, very simple. This is why I've gone for this. Very few components, and it saves a lot of space and weight. So it's just the Invicta battery with two 25 amp cables to the back of the car. Runs under the car, comes up down the side through a grommet in the bottom, up, and I've just got a drifter power box up there. That's just a temporary thing at the moment until the drawers go in, and I'll do something more permanent. And it just powers the fridge, and we can charge phones and whatever we need off that bit. And that's all we need. We don't need any of this extravagant stuff. I don't know why people spend so much money on it. You just don't need it. So it's quite simple. It just runs, it doesn't have a BC-DC, you don't need a shunt, you don't need any of that stuff. It just runs straight off the app. You can see the charging, the battery state of charge, the temperatures, that sort of stuff, just off the app. The only thing it doesn't have, or doesn't have it keep, is just a record of, well, I can't find on the app, it doesn't keep a record of like the battery history, which I wish it did, but maybe it's something they can update in the future. So the reason why this is working well, there's two reasons. There's obviously the fact that there's heaps more room under the engine bay. Temperatures seems to be about probably 10 degrees less than the Jeep, and so it's obviously got, you know, there's the turbos on the other side, so that's a bonus, and there's just more air around the engine bay, and the fact that it's at the front where the air's coming in, so that tends to keep a bit of air flowing around the battery, and heat's just generally not such a big issue. The other thing is that the alternator, somewhere down there, is a temperature compensating alternator, and basically it's more like a conventional alternator, and it just basically, I know they have issues with the normal BC-DCs, but for this system it seems to work quite well. It just basically charges the battery like a deep cycle battery, and it charges it pretty fast too. I've seen it charging so far up to about 70 amps, which is great. It just means that 60 amp hours is charged up in less than an hour from zero, which is excellent. Means it's charging really efficiently. Have we fully tested it? Not yet, but over the last few days I've checked temperatures and everything seems pretty good. Worst I've seen it is sort of high 40s. What I'm finding though is that the issue is heat soak. It's not so much while you're driving. It's not there's plenty of air flowing through the engine bay. What I'm finding though, when you stop the car and you leave the bonnet shut, there's nowhere for that heat to go. So the heat's coming from the engine, it's slowly making its way into the battery, and the battery's getting hotter and hotter. It's just got nowhere to go. And because the battery itself is insulated, it takes obviously a while for it to come back down. So like, I think that if you're out bushing, you've done a really hard day of driving, I think it'd probably be a good idea. You set up camp, just open the bonnet, let the heat out through the top. Worst case scenario, I think. That's also based on some experience some other people have had with their lithium batteries on the bonnet. It seems to be a heat soak issue, not so much while you're driving. Now, lithium under bonnet, longevity still a question mark. These ones have got a 3-year warranty on them. There is a bit of talk about them upping the warranty depending on how they go, so they've been on the market about 3 years now. In that case, it's just going to be a way up for you in regards to your cost-benefit analysis. Do you spend the money and have that convenience of having one battery that you replace maybe every 3 or 4 years? Invicta's quite a good brand, Australian company. I don't think they're made in Australia, but they're an Australian company and they're good quality batteries. Expensive. This one was $1,600. It's a question: are you happy to replace it every 3 years at a minimum? That's a matter for yourself. I'm happy to give it a go. I love how simple it is. They made the wiring up to the fridge and the electrics at the back really easy. So I'm happy to give it a go. And the other thing too is its performance. It's like just using the winch and stuff, it's been really, really good.
Here's something you notice about the Prado is that you see that ampage going down, and this is where the Jeep's alternator has an advantage. The Prado can't keep up with it, whereas the Jeeps can.
Now there's a whole bunch of other testing I've done with batteries in both cars. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments down below. I'll happily answer them for you. So does it work under bonnet? Yeah, it works. I think you've got to fork out the money for a decent one. Plenty of people having issues with other brands, I'll put that out there. So won't name any of them, we know where that goes. Not Invicta, I'm not saying they won't, but I haven't found any. It's other brands that people seem to be having dramas with. And it's not them cooking off or going into thermal runaway. It seems to be them just the BMS kicking in and turning them off, and then and either leaving people stranded or they can't use their 12-volt system at the back. So, but like I said, there's things you can do. If you're having a big drive and you've built up a lot of heat in the engine bay, it's a hot day, maybe when you set up camp, just open the bonnet, let the heat go out through the top rather than let the battery absorb all that engine heat. Anyway, I've done heaps more testing. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next one.